Okay, at least I can say it's not this. K-Dog's movie review. Avatar: The Last Airbender is the new Netflix live-action adaptation of the beloved Nickelodeon animated show from 2005. The show's first season is 8 episodes long and covers the events of the original's first season, The Book of Water. Like most sane people on this planet, I love the original animated series. It had characters with distinct personalities and depth that I cared about, amazing action only obtainable with animation, incredible music, and an engaging story that challenged the characters with valuable lessons, not only good for kids, but adults as well. Oh, and it did all that while also being hilarious. The animated series, as most believe, is near perfect. There's absolutely no reason for this live action adaptation to exist. But unfortunately, we humans, including myself, are simple creatures and have learned that people will flock to see their beloved IPs reimagined. Disney is currently doing this with every single one of their animated movies. Nostalgia and fan service prints money. Money wins. But regardless of my personal opinions on the necessity of its existence, the show is here. So how does someone like myself review this? Do I judge it based on its own thing in a vacuum where the original didn't exist? Hard to do that. Do we judge it based on the faithfulness to the original? That's tough too, because in an ideal world, spoiler, we don't live in an ideal world, I'd like to see a similar story but reimagined. Different perspectives, action sequences, character traits, and tales of our heroes' journeys. It's a hard balance. We want the same thing, but we don't want the same thing. We want Sokka to be the Sokka that we know, but wouldn't seeing that again be a little boring? If this live adaptation has to exist, should we want Sokka to be a little different? I could make an entirely different video on this topic, but I'm here to talk about the Netflix adaptation. So I sat my ass down and did a classic Netflix binge. And I gotta say,
they make me look totally stiff and humorless.
Actually, I think that actor's pretty spot on.
the show is fine. Again, I hate that this live adaptation even exists, but despite that, it's fine. I wasn't offended by it, but I didn't love it either. There were things that I enjoyed and things I didn't enjoy. I know this is the internet, but not everything has to be horrible or the greatest thing of all time. You can tell with this show that the creators care deeply about the source material. I can feel the love for the original show in this series. This is far from M. Night Shyamalan garbage. Is it as good as the animated series? Hell no. But this show does have a few great things going for it. Some that, in my opinion, rival the original animated series. So let's get into it. I don't have exact figures, but it feels like Netflix poured a lot of money into this show. Animation is great because there's so much you can do with manipulating how characters move and interact with their surroundings, especially with bending. The bending here looks great. The CGI looks good. There are some mad green screen moments, which I'll get into a little later, but overall, the CGI of the elements, creatures, and cities are fantastic. Whether the camera is soaring over Omashu, zoomed in on tiny earth particles rumbling at the work of a bender, or putting us face to face with Ko the Face Stealer, I thought the CGI looked dope, especially the firebending. I thought it looked pretty fucking cool. The music and sound design is great too. They obviously have great source material to work with, so it'd be pretty hard to mess the score up. But nonetheless, I enjoyed it. Hearing the bombastic low tones of the Fire Nation or the subtle nods to sad songs from the original animated series, if you know, you know. Bending also sounded authentic and not awkward. Creatures, spirits, and humans sounded great. The story and characters, this is where it starts to sort of fall off for me. The source material is obviously there. They pretty much stick to the Book of Water for this first season. I do appreciate how they were able to weave in a lot of the animated episodes and characters into single stories here. A lot of the times, it can feel authentic. Different characters such as Azula and Ozai also get decent screen time here, when in the original series, they barely were in the first season, if at all. The world of Avatar is filled with charismatic, fun characters, whether good or evil. This Netflix show understands this and tries to cram all of those things into just 8 episodes. At times, it can feel pretty bloated. Authentic to the show, but bloated. I'm happy to hear Secret Tunnel and see those characters, but it feels crammed into a story that's already jam-packed. It kind of felt like member buried distractions to me, because I will say, when this show slows down, it is fantastic. At times, this is a much more adult show than the original. I mean, hell, a guy literally is burned alive in the opener. They do a great job of focusing on the horrors of war and the moralities of those affected by and living through it. The struggle of the Avatar being a pacifist, yet given the ultimate responsibility of being the one who's meant to bring balance to a world filled with hate and death. But I felt like the creators were too afraid to do things like not include the cabbage guy. And so we have these extended slow scenes followed by rushed Avatar soup. I think this is where the biggest disconnect is to the original. This show definitely tries to grow up a little by sacrificing the humor from the original. The show has some jokes, but they pale in comparison. It lacks that charm. That balance between humor and seriousness is what made the OG perfect, and how it was able to connect to so many different audiences of all ages. Here, the balance is tipped in a different way, so the little humor that it has feels kind of off. This show doesn't feel fun, which is fine. You hope your adaptation is different, but when they try to cram humor into the end of an episode, it feels forced. The show is also bloated with dialogue. There's a lot of exposition to cram into this universe. I get it. But there are many times where characters are describing their feelings or events instead of slowing down and just showing us. Real human actors can express so much emotion with just their face. When this show does that, it's great, but it's limited. They also end a couple of the episodes with inspiring voiceovers, which I thought was awkward and unnecessary. Now, the characters. Everyone has their own favorite Avatar character. It's Toph, and you're wrong if it's not. This was probably my biggest concern going into live action adaptation. Were the characters going to be authentic to the show? I think in general they are here. Most of the actors are doing a fantastic job. They feel like their OG character. When the show slows down and lets them emote, it's great. I found myself getting invested in our characters' struggles, despite already knowing the outcome. Zuko and Iroh especially. When the both of them are on screen together, I was fully hooked to my TV. Admiral Zhao was another standout. Supporting characters are also great. Soldiers, townsfolk, everyone here is putting on a great performance. But when you think about these characters and their personalities within this show that feels disjointed between humor and seriousness, it just all feels a little awkward. My least favorite character might be controversial, and I hate to say this, but it was Ozai. I love Daniel Day Kim. I think he's such a fantastic actor, and he does a great job here. But for such a villainous character that we need to hate with a passion, I just found myself enjoying him. Maybe I just find his face too likable. His voice feels too cool for me. And when he's just standing there, I don't necessarily feel menace. I think it's because I loved Mark Hamill's performance so much in the original animated series. I guess if they go down the route of giving his character more depth in the later seasons, then I could see this actor doing a great job with it. But as a character we really need to hate with a passion, I just didn't feel it. One final thing that was pretty big to me, but I didn't really know where to put it in this review, were the costumes and the set designs. They look stunning, don't get me wrong. Very faithful to the show. But they don't feel lived in. It has that Star Wars prequel, everything looks too clean vibe to it. I felt like I was watching cosplayers. It never felt like I was really in the universe. It had this very actors acting on different sets vibe to it. So overall, I had an okay time with this show. You can tell there was passion put into it. Some of the slow, heavier character scenes I absolutely loved, and the action was fun to watch. But the bloated dialogue, show references, and forced charm that didn't exist made my overall experience just okay. It's certainly not bad, but it's not great either. It's just fine, which, when compared to the OG, will make this feel forgettable. This show really felt afraid to be its own thing, and with it being too close to the original, I can't necessarily recommend it to anyone. Let me know what you guys thought of this series in the comments below, if you love it, if you hated it, if you thought it was just okay. Also, who's your favorite character from the original show, and why is it Toph? Till next time.